Imagine if you could travel through time and watch Earth changing with your own eye. Not hundreds of years, but hundreds of millions. Every age had its own giant, and every time life evolved, nature seemed to ask one question again and again. What if we make it even bigger? The story starts in a world that looked nothing like today. No cities, no humans, no roads, only endless oceans, strange skies, and creatures so enormous that if you saw them with your own eyes, your brain would struggle to believe that long before giant dinosaurs stepped onto land, ancient oceans already belonged to monsters. Imagine standing near an endless coast, hearing waves crash against rocks, and suddenly seeing a shadow moving beneath the water. Not a shark, not a whale, something far larger than anything a human had ever evolved to understand. In these prehistoric seas, giant predators ruled the water. Oceans were battlefields where size meant survival. Smaller creatures lived in constant danger because, in a world like this, every movement could attract something much larger watching from below. Entire ecosystems existed under the rule of giant hunters and ancient sea beasts that looked almost alien compared to modern animals. But then Earth changed again. Continents shifted, climates transformed, and the next chapter arrived in the age that people still call the greatest era of giants, the dinosaurs. Suddenly, the ground itself belonged to creatures beyond imagination. Forests became kingdoms of moving mountains. If a human stood there, you would not feel like the dominant species. You would feel like an insect standing in the middle of giants. Many people think the most dangerous creatures were always the predators. Huge teeth, sharp claws, creatures designed for hunting. One of the most famous giant predators was Spinosaurus, a massive dinosaur with a giant sail rising from its back. Picture this creature walking beside rivers millions of years ago. Its body stretched farther than many vehicles today. Every step would shake the ground beneath. Seeing it in real life would probably feel like watching a monster from a movie step into reality. But now comes the comparison that changes everything, because even giant hunters had limits. Imagine turning your head and seeing something even larger appear from the distance. Not a predator, not a hunter, a living tower. Argentinosaurus was one of the largest land animals ever discovered. Its neck stretched toward the sky like a moving bridge. Its body carried unbelievable weight. Suddenly, the terrifying predator standing nearby no longer feels like the biggest thing in the world. Think about that for a second. A creature that humans would call a monster, standing beside something so enormous that it starts looking smaller. That is what makes Earth so unbelievable. Nature didn't just create giant creatures. It created giants that made other giants look ordinary. For millions of years, dinosaurs ruled Earth. Their footsteps echoed across continents. Their shadows covered forests. Power seemed unstoppable. If you lived during that era, you might think nothing could ever replace them. Nothing could ever challenge rulers that controlled the planet for millions of years. Then everything changed. The sky's dark planet transformed. Entire worlds disappeared. The age of dinosaurs ended, but the age of giants didn't. Earth started building something new. The Ice Age arrived. Huge frozen lands stretched across continents, and once again giant creatures, massive beasts moved across snow-covered landscapes. Cold winds crossed endless plains. Creatures carried enormous tusks, giant bodies, and incredible. Imagine looking across the horizon and watching giant herds moving slowly through ice and snow. They looked like living tanks designed by nature itself. You might think by now Earth had reached its limit. Sea monsters had come and gone. Dinosaurs had ruled and vanished. Ice Age giants had walked and disappeared. Surely the story of giant creatures was ending. But Earth still had one final surprise. Now jump to the modern world. Look around today and everything feels smaller. Cities dominate the landscape. Humans built technology. Humans built machines. Humans reached space. Feels like the age of giants is over, but it isn't. Because hidden beneath Earth's oceans lives the final chapter of this story, the blue whale. And this is where everything becomes unbelievable. After hundreds of millions of years of evolution, after sea monsters, after giant predators, after dinosaur titan, after Ice Age beasts, the largest creature known to have ever existed on Earth is alive right now? Right now. At this exact moment, somewhere in Earth's oceans, a living giant larger than ancient predators, heavier than giant dinosaurs, and more massive than creatures separated by millions of years is swimming beneath the waves. And that ending changes the entire story. Because maybe evolution was never trying to create the most brutal. Maybe it wasn't trying to create the scariest creature. Maybe it wasn't even trying to create the strongest creature. Maybe all along Earth was simply testing one question over and over.